G'day guys, it's Sam again from Nixon Offroad crew, bringing you another install. This time we're working on a Jeep Wrangler JL 2018 to 2020 model, and we have added this sleek, aggressive, powder-coated steel badass of a front bumper. Now this thing is chock-packed full of benefits, functionality. It's got, first of all, it includes two of these aftermarket fog lights that'll fit in these slots on both sides. It has the option for a 16-inch light bar if you want to add one to give it a little bit of extra punch to your light. It's winch compatible. It's got these strong D-rings. It's adaptable, having a bunch of different styles. We're going to show you that in just a bit. It does take a while to install this though. We got to remove the OEM, we have to choose our style, we have to install the front bumper, and we have to hook up these lights. So guys, it takes a while. Let's get started.
We start by taking out the main plastic piece that protects the underbelly and the front of the Jeep. And that's going to be 8 clips in the front and 2 screws in the back. You can notch out the 8 clips with a little bit of force. The 2 screws in the back will take just a little bit longer. The next step is to remove these 2 bolts on this underguard piece. Now you don't have to remove this underguard piece, but it does make the main bolts on the bumper much easier to reach later on. We're now moving back up to the top of the bumper because we need to loosen up this small plastic trim. It has 6 clips and 2 screws holding it in place. We're going to need to remove those to be able to loosen it. We're now going back underneath because we got to remove this small protective plastic piece. There are 7 long screws here to remove, and it's going to take a little bit longer to remove them. Which is why it's way easier to use a power tool for this particular task. Sometimes these protective pieces don't come out too easily and require just a little bit of force and pressure to pop them out. Now we can go ahead and remove that small plastic trim from earlier. We're in the home stretch now of getting these OEM parts off, with just 8 nuts to remove from the main bumper body. Now before you install your new front bumper, be sure to detach the front fog lights main connector first. These are all the parts and pieces that we're going to need to install this new adaptable front bumper. The extensions with the included LED fog lights, the bumper itself, the bull bar, and all of the included screws, bolts, and washers. We start with the screws with the black washers on the right and the plastic washers to prepare to attach the front bumper piece. Go ahead and insert the screws from behind and use the plastic washers in the front to keep the screws from backing out when we attach it to the Jeep body. There will be 8 to secure on each of the main bumper brackets. Now we can go ahead and install the front bumper. It helps to have an extra hand as there is nothing holding the bumper until it is secured in place. We do that by securing the 8 points on the bumper brackets, and be sure to insert another washer on the other side to keep it all strong. Then we'll hand screw them all in place and use some tools to tighten them all down. The main part of the front bumper is now secured in place, and we can work on the extensions. We're back at the workbench for a quick moment to prepare these extensions with the included LED fog lights. Go ahead and grab the included bracket adapter. Be sure to line up the 3 points on the left and the 1 point on the right. Screw those in place and we can slide the fog light into position on the bottom mount. Attach it with the included screw, but be sure to leave it loose, as there are a number of ways that this light can be positioned for your preference. Sideways, tilted, or a little further forward or back. Now we're going to match up these points in the main bumper to attach the extensions. We recommend you secure this top point first, then the extension will be hanging and it will be easier to secure the other points. Go ahead and repeat the process on the other side. Now we can use these remaining screws to install the bull bar for the complete look. It's handy to have these parts accessible within an arm's reach for the next part, which is getting the bull bar secured on these 2 points on each side. Start with leaving the screws loose to ensure the right alignment before we tighten down everything. Some of the access can be a bit awkward here, so take your time to do it right. Now we can reattach the OEM underguard by securing these 2 points with the OEM screws. Lastly, go ahead and attach the included D-rings and your new front bumper should be looking rock solid on your Jeep. And remember, this front bumper is adaptable, so there are a few different styles that you can choose from. Now we need to wire up the LED fog lights with this included wiring kit. The first part to point out here is the additional button to be installed in the driver's side area of the cab. Then we have the rest of the kit with the fuse for the wiring harness, the relay, and these 2 yellow connectors for the fog lights. There are 2 ways to connect the fog lights: the shorter harness to connect it to the OEM fog light switch, and a longer harness to install the fog lights as independent lights. If your Jeep does not have an OEM fog light switch, then you will need to use the longer harness method. We're going to focus on the longer harness method, so let's head back to the Jeep. Now this wiring kit is fairly long as it needs to connect both fog lights and run to the fuse box and the interior of the Jeep. We can separate the white wire from the rest of the bundle as it serves as an extension for the switch. You can detach this connection to separate part of the switch unit that will be installed in the interior of the Jeep. We'll be working with this much later on. Right now though, we need to remove the air intake unit from the Jeep. This will give us more access to install the new wiring. With the new wiring, it starts with these 2 yellow connectors for the fog lights. We're going to run the wire down through the engine area and pop it out on the back of the front bumper. Then we're going to pull it all completely through and make sure that we have both of our connectors ready, as we'll now be laying them out roughly in position and connecting them directly into the fog lights. Detach the alternate wiring harness and plug in our new connector. Both of the fog lights are now connected and we'll clean up the wires later on. Now we need to sort out the other end of this wire bundle. Firstly, we're going to organize our wires a bit and make sure that they are running around the air intake unit and through this bracket. Now before we secure our fuse box connectors, let's clean up and separate the wires a bit. These are the connectors that we'll be securing to the Jeep's battery. Now obviously make sure your engine is completely off. Start with the red wire from the main harness and locate the battery's positive terminal. Now simply loosen the nut, slip the connector in between, and then tighten it all down with a tool. Then repeat this process with the black negative terminal. Now we can test our fog lights before we move on. Grab this connector on the end of the white wire, and all you have to do is simply tap the connector firmly onto the positive terminal and your new LED fog light should flash on and off. If this doesn't happen, a common mistake is inserting your yellow connectors wrong. Simply flip them and try again. Now we can run the rest of the white wire into the interior of the Jeep, shimmy it under this piece of insulation to feed in behind this OEM panel. There's a bit more space on the other side, so an easier way to do this is to attach a random piece of wire or string to the white wire and simply pull it through from the other side. Take the random wire off and run the rest of the white wire through to the inside of the Jeep. To keep the wiring clean, slide it underneath this protective OEM padding. Now we need to start removing some of the interior panels. A picking tool helps here as there are a fair number of clips holding these pieces in place. The glove compartment also needs to be removed to maintain our access. Reach your hand behind the panel so we can continue to run the white wire to the eventual switch unit. Now some of the other interior panels need to be removed. Really take your time here, some of these clips can be a bit stubborn. This main panel requires a bit of extra care as there are a bunch of clips on it and 2 wired connections attaching it on the back. One for the start switch button on the unit and the other for the AC. Go ahead and detach both of them to completely remove the panel. The last panel to remove is the one directly below it. This one actually has a screw in the middle that will need to be unscrewed to carefully remove the entire panel. We can now get back to running the white wire into the next panel. It's time for that wire bundle that we set aside earlier. Grab the white wire and reattach it to the rest of the white wire that we've been running through the Jeep. Also unplug the green connector. We need to run this connector through this hole at the back between the metal and the plastic. Fish it through and run it under the driver's side. Leave this red trigger wire with the bare connector end in the middle area. The next step is attaching this connector on the black wire. Just as with the battery earlier, connect the black wire to this exposed bolt. These internal bolts can actually be utilized as the ground area. In fact, the majority of the metal chassis on the Jeep can serve as the ground. Now simply reconnect both of the green connectors. Lastly, we need to tap the red trigger wire to the accessory power side in the middle panel. Go ahead and crimp it to one of these crimper pieces. Now there are other ways to tap this wire that will work just as well. Next, carefully disconnect the power socket connector, as this is the power that we'll want to use for the switch unit. We have already pre-tapped this one before. Find a similar tapper to this one and tap it to the orange and green wire as shown. Once it is tapped, you can connect a red trigger wire and all of the new connections are now ready. Now just reconnect it all back into the power socket as shown. Then reconnect the AC unit and the start switch button and let it rest for now. We need to test the fog lights by turning on the Jeep before we put everything back in place. The switch should now light up, indicating a job well done. On the back of the switch is an adhesive that will allow you to place it in whatever spot is best for you. We can now move on to cleaning up all of the wires underneath and reattaching this panel with the screw. Then it's just a case of cleaning up the rest of the wires and reattaching the other panels. Simply push in these panels to reconnect the clips. Get that glove compartment back in there and the interior of the Jeep will be all sorted. We'll finish up by cleaning up this wire bundle using a zip tie to keep it clean and secure in place. And don't forget to put your air intake unit back into the Jeep. With all the wires now clean and secure, you can give yourself a good pat on the back because we are done. Now your installed switch should be engaging the additional LED fog lights, and your new front bumper should be looking fantastic and rock solid on your Jeep.
And we are wrapped up. Congratulations, I know that one took a while. Now our techs do recommend 3 to 4 hours for this installation. That includes taking off the OEM front bumper, preparing the new bumper, and hooking up the lights. Now, that time is going to be significantly less if you choose to install the OEM fog lights, because those will be plug and play. But these ones, it does require a little bit more effort to get them functional. So guys, have fun, take your time. Cheers.